Ну что ж, дамы и господа, друзья, все, мы готовы двигаться.
Ladies and gentlemen, friends, we are ready to move ahead. And right now we'll give a big round of applause to the moderator, advisor, to the aide to the president. This is Ilya Novodvorsky. We're all here listening to us rather than Igor Shuvalov or Nick Vucic. So let me introduce the speakers on this panel today, and they will be here to discuss youth leadership. I invite to this podium the Minister of Labor and Social Protection of Russia, Mr. Topilin, General Secretary of the World Assembly of Youth, Ediola Polshari, President of AIESEC International, Abdul Rahman Aymani, Executive Director of Volunteers for Freedom, Olga Amelchenkova. She's also the member of the Social Chamber of Russia. Daria Maslovskaya, representing Mars Corporation, a major food company, and Bertrand, head of the Thinker program. If you need simultaneous interpretation devices, make sure you get them before the session starts. 3 of the speakers will be speaking in a language different from Russian. So, dear friends, let's begin with a small question that I want to address to you, to every one of you in this room. Please raise your hands if you consider yourself a leader. Maxim Anatolyevich, do you believe yourself to be a leader? Okay. That was impressive enough. All right, raise your hand if you can think of a person who you could follow as a leader. So somebody who is a leader in your life other than yourself. Is there a leader you're following in your life? President Putin? Well, that's a big question, of course, who you can call a leader, who is a leader to you, and what the modern idea of a leader is, and if indeed we need people to be leaders, if we are thinking about equal rights and equal happiness for all, and general equality. So do we need leaders in this world, people who can create their own agendas and respond to challenges in their own unique ways, or raise questions as no one has done before? This is what we're here to discuss. The people on this podium are leaders, we believe. That is why we want to ask them to comment on what their vision of a leader is, who can be a leader, and what they do. Abdul, I would like to start with you. You have a strong international organization, AIESEC International. Let's give a round of applause to this organization. The mission of your organization is about developing leadership. You do it through exchange programs and development programs. So it's an organization that affects young people. Why did you focus on leadership of all things?
So I think that there's some people like, this is my fourth panel in 2 days, so I'm a little bit like, oh my God, what's happening here? But it's a pleasure to be with you guys again one more time. It's definitely a pleasure to be here in this beautiful country after the beautiful invitation that we've received to be part of this youth festival, which is extremely humbling, and we're extremely honored and grateful to be part of such an association. But to be able to answer this question, I would ask my friend to put on a slide. Why did we choose leadership? When you come to think about what is currently happening in the world, or how the world is being composed, it's very easy for us to say that we are waiting for the world to change. Who here believes that the world is going to be better in 10 years? If you think that the world is going to be better, is going to be in a better state, raise your hand. That is fantastic. That's very, very beautiful. Who here is willing to make the world a better place in the next year, to work for it every single day? And that's exactly why we believe in leadership in young people. Because we believe that youth are the fundamental solution towards furthering the global agenda. When our leaders of our nations came together in 2015 and launched the global agenda, they were like, these are going to be the goals for the next 15 years, which are the Sustainable Development Goals. If you know the Sustainable Development Goals, raise your hand. If you're familiar, if you've seen this before, raise your hand. Cool. So I'll tell you guys a little bit about this. We asked young people if they are aware of what the Sustainable Development Goals are around 2 years ago. And from all the people that responded to our survey at that point in time, only 46% of young people said that they are aware of what the global agenda is, and that they are aware of what the Sustainable Development Goals are. We believe in the potential and youth leadership capacity. We believe that young people are the fundamental solution, no doubt. But how can we be the fundamental solution if we're unaware of the solution? Or if we're unaware or uneducated on what is the global social issues that the whole world is working for? And that was the key thought that we had in mind. And we decided that, okay, instead of judging that or looking at it from a place of, oh my God, you don't know, you're not aware of the goals, you're a bad young person, you're a bad person, we decided to do something about it. So I'll share a little bit about that with you guys. We started asking or probing a little bit further and asking young people, okay, if you were to care about something, so you don't know the global goals, that's not a problem. But if you were to care about an issue, a social issue, what are the issues that you would care about? And out of the respondents of the survey, most of the young people were very well distributed across all those different 17 different possible issues that you can care about when it comes to developing the world, which shows also how diverse we are as young people. But one of those key highlight issues was improving quality education, where almost 17% of young people that filled our survey said that we would like better education, or we would work to improve the quality of the education we're receiving, or the quality of education that we're giving for the world. Because as they say, knowledge is power. And if we're unaware, how would we be able to create and make change every single day? We have the passion. No doubt. Does any of you people here in the room believe that young people don't have the energy that is needed to change the world? If you believe so, raise your hand. Then there is no doubt. But we need to do something about it that is based on knowledge, that is based on fact, and that is informed, not just through passion and energy, but also through doing something that is systematic and functional. At the end of the day, that's what we want to stand for. We want to stand for a generation that is not only speaking about what they want to change up in the world, but they're actually doing something about it. And that's why we launched Youth for Global Goals, as an activational campaign where young people can actually not only start to understand what the Sustainable Development Goals are, but actually participate, actually create a difference on the ground. And that's why you find that it's not only about awareness, but it's also about understanding and action. And since launching the campaign till today, fast facts, more than 12.5 million young people became more aware of their Sustainable Development Goals through the campaign. 56,000 You Speak Forum delegates, or forums where young people get the opportunity to discuss and talk about the Sustainable Development Goals, were capable of being engaged across more than 200 locations around the globe. 32.1 thousand young people went on volunteer experiences, and 6,500 projects were created towards furthering the global agenda. 10 global partners from a lot of various different sectors and stakeholders participated, including government, in terms of making that happen. Because we believe we want to work on the ground, and we want to showcase that work, not through me sitting here on a podium and telling you how awesome the world is gonna be, or how awesome ISIC is, because that's not what this is about. What it is about the work that is being done on the ground, about you guys leaving this room and willing to take a leadership step, just like the leadership step that those young volunteers are taking around the world. And better than me speaking about it, they can tell you about it. Can you play? Just click.
Окей, Абдо.
Yeah, it's okay.
Без видео.
Yeah.
Будем действовать в рамках 17 целей.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Okay, video or no video, it's, still understand your point. One of the key things that young people talk about, and one of the things that matters for leaders, is information. I believe we all understand it. So ThinkerView, represented by Bertrand here, which is about access to information, is central to that. Leaders should be able to bear responsibility for the information that they convey. So Bertrand, what's your Thinker project all about, or how is it connected to responsibility of people working with information? Good afternoon, everybody. We launched this project with some friends. We saw that journalists are not always doing a good job. They're not always writing the truth. They're often hiding behind something that is simply based on past knowledge. So we wanted to make sure that everyone has free and unlimited access to information. We looked at what the skills are that young people have, and we decided that we are choosing as our target audience young journalists and young politicians. That is, those young people who have to choose their orientation, their line of work. If I were working with Abdurrahman, I would say, what you say is beautiful and it's true, but we've been hearing it for decades. And still, 80 million people in Africa are starving to death, and this has been going on for 20 years. And so rather than educating young people and having them smile beautiful smiles, we need to do something more specific, something more down to the ground. We are we're paying big money to stop hunger and poverty in the world, but it goes on. Maybe we should just get down to it and work really hard, like the monks did in former centuries. I mean, doing something very specific, very concrete. Today we work with media specialists And we want to make sure that in the Western world, in Africa, in Russia, in any country of the world, everybody had access to full information. And this must all be public and open. Our approach is broad. We see the problems that exist in today's world, and we try to act upon them. I hope this was a response to the question. Well, I don't know about monks working, but I'm thinking about this old story when three masons were asked, "What are you doing?" One said, I'm laying these bricks. The second said, "I'm building this wall." And the third said, "I'm building the most beautiful cathedral in the world." So our agenda can be changed by a change of outlook. But certainly hard work is a necessary component of all that. So my next question is for Mr. Topilin, the Minister of Labor of the Russian Federation. How can you put together the notion of labor, of work, and leadership for young people? Thank you very much. Thank you for this opportunity to speak here before you. For our country, for all those who are present here, for all the young people in this festival, it must be a very interesting event. And I do hope that you all make use of it, that you learn from it, that you find new friends here and start asking new questions. Perhaps that's the most important thing. Getting new questions rather than new answers, realizing that there is something more that you need to learn or discover. Let me give you a brief overview of what our ministry does, keeping in mind the question that was posed to me right now. The Ministry of Labor, and this will be true of Ministry of Labor in any country in the world. So such a ministry has a very broad mandate. It looks at many different aspects of human life, from birth till death. In fact, no aspect of human life is left untouched by the Ministry of Labor and Social Affairs. Certainly, as young people, you will be more interested in the aspects of our work that are to do with jobs, employment, and good wages. We try to see what the issues are in this sphere. I keep trying to explain to people who ask questions, and they are people from different political parties, people of different views, representing different professional and expert communities, and they all insist on doing things that are probably not very relevant to young people. Politicians often focus on youth employment by saying that young people need assistance, they need entry-level jobs. And many countries start building their youth employment legislation from this premise. I was always opposed to it. Maybe I'm mistaken, maybe you will correct me if I'm wrong, but my view is that what the government needs to do for young people is access to education and skills, and also a chance to try out their skills. But often it is about information, about available jobs and employers. And it is up to young people themselves to make their choices, choice of jobs, choice of lines of work, etc. But it's not up to the government to get out of its way and help young people so that they feel cosseted and pampered at this extremely important part in their lives, first jobs. Young people should be allowed to make those choices for themselves.
Да, здесь, безусловно.
When it comes to people with special needs, the government, volunteer organizations, national associations, all agencies are to provide support. It's necessary to determine a strategy, how we should cooperate, how we should work together, young people, public organizations, government agencies. They often ask me what our officials think of the most popular professions in another 30 years. Will there be drivers in another 30 years? Or will it be necessary to cook something, to cook food in another 30 years? I cannot say for sure. Well, you know, just 10 years ago, we couldn't have thought that we would have such iPhones with all the potential they have. Well, you know, it's possible to determine a certain trend or a vector of development, but it's very difficult to say whether it will be this way or that way. What we need to do, what you need to do, is to acquire knowledge, to acquire new skills, because in this globalizing and technologically advancing world, with digitalization permeating all spheres of the economy, you can't do without it. All professions will kind of undergo an upgrade. Our ministry looks into all types of issues, a very broad range of issues. Things that I would like to focus on is not only about civil activism, finding your place in life. What we help young people, it's not just about finding jobs, but we also focus on such things as family issues and demographics. From my perspective, now the world is changing, and young people do not want, and sometimes they do not want to create families. They are more into education. They decide for themselves that education is more important than a family. Well, they're right to a certain extent, but still, it's necessary to remember that these are not the opposites. I mean, values that are connected with your work and values that are connected with the family. These are things that go hand in hand. You should think of how you could combine it all, how you could do it all together. And it's about the birth rate. We need to improve the birth rate. 2 days ago, I had talks with my counterpart from Singapore. So we shared our expertise. I told my counterpart about the measures we take here in the Russian Federation to improve the demographics. I told her how we've managed to improve the situation in 10 years. She was surprised, actually, because it was difficult for her to understand how we had managed to get together, to get concentrated to improve the situation in this area. So I think that the UN Millennial Development Goals are very important, and family values are also part of these goals. That's why we need to do our best to improve the situation in this respect, to raise awareness among people in terms of family values, moral values, because it's through families that the economy will be developing. And if you just keep thinking that first you get a good degree, then a good employment, a good apartment, and then you will create a family, only then will you create a family. Well, the situation won't improve much for the better. I do understand that all things are necessary. So there are questions coming from the floor. And perhaps another topic for discussion and for something to you to think over. And perhaps that issue will be discussed at the next festival. When we speak about employment, we want to hear young people we want to hear young people's voice. We want to improve the social system because that's of great importance, especially the system of retirement, which needs improvement. Young people should get the message, get that signal that once you are engaged in a certain job, you should do it legally, because otherwise, without certain deductions, tax deductions, no social plans will be possible, and we will not be able to support the previous generation. That's about the solidarity of generations that I'm trying to say. And I believe that we need to raise awareness among people, young people, when it comes to solidarity of different generation. And these are things to discuss. I would be happy to hear questions from you, and I will try to answer them. Well, I'm pretty sure that there are quite a few questions, but I suggest that we watch the video that Abderrahman wanted to show us. Is there any soundtrack? Well, most likely we need to give the floor to our beautiful ladies here on the panel. The World Youth Assembly does a lot in terms of social support and different types of projects. That's why I would like to give you the floor. You are young people. It's time to have a good time and entertain yourself, but you undertake major, serious problems. You undertake this serious responsibility as leaders, and you go there and you solve these problems.
Very much, Master of Ceremony. Distinguished speakers, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. At World Assembly of Youth, we have a motto that goes by, in service of youth since 1949. Yes, for almost 70 years, we have been trying to provide a platform for all the young people to speak up their voices. And we have believed they are the leaders of today. So can I have a raise of hands? Who believes that is a leader of today? Raise your hand, please. Translation? Okay. Are you a leader of today? Do you want to make a difference? Do you want to change the world? Then you do require a couple of skills, don't you? Knowledge? Education? So when we're talking about education, how do you look at it? Formal, non-formal, or informal? What you do at the universities is considered a formal education. What you are learning here, the knowledge gaining here, it's actually non-formal education. And informal is what, like the honorable minister say, it's families. So all of this has to be combined together in order for you to become a very good leader. But not only just that, you need to provide solutions to the problems that we are facing in the world. And one of them is unemployment. Again, like the minister said, why should we provide you a job when you can make one? And trust me, you are the innovators of today. You have the opportunities not only because of the technology, but because of the ideas that you exchange among each others, because you don't want that solution to be given to you or be told what to do anymore, but you want to come up with it. So innovation is one of them. Entrepreneurship is another one. And you're not only just providing an opportunity for others and for yourself, but that could go at a longer length, and it could even be social entrepreneurship. Have you heard about it? Where you could do something that is good for environment, for your community, and you are doing something for the benefit of the future. Do you all know that? Do you know what is social entrepreneurship, guys? Oh, come on, I know it's afternoon. You young people are supposed to be awake. Come on. Yes? All right. So, at WAY, we not only provide the platform to tackle those policies, but we also get you all together to discuss pertinent issues. In my previous panel, for all of you that you were not around, we tackled 21 of them, and leadership is one of them. Believe it or not, in a lot of countries, it's an issue. I have been in many conferences where I've asked the audience whether they are the leaders of today, and everyone kept quiet. And I asked them again, what do they see as a leader? The same way the moderator did earlier on. They always see either a politician, a parent, or someone who financially supports them. But ask yourself a question. If you were not a leader yourself, then why are you here? Who told you to be here? Who told you to wake up in the morning? So, or you want to just be free and adult enough to take few decisions and ignore the rest and give the responsibility to the others, right? Yes? That's a way of looking at it. But like I say, you do need a lot of skills, opportunities, platforms to become that leader that not only will showcase how far you can go, but how you can help other peers as well. In your country, community, school for that matter, or family. You have a lot of successful entrepreneurs which are billionaires at this point of time. And they did not wait for someone else. They came up with a solution. And I believe there are many of them in Russia and other countries as well, neighboring countries all around the world, to begin with. But to support the developing and the ability to analyze the strength of each of you, we also should understand the weaknesses. We should set personal and professional goals in order to be an exemplary leader. And of course, the most important thing, to have self-esteem, confidence, motivation, and abilities to carry those leadership skills forward. Because you want to be the example to your peers. You want to motivate them and lead by an example, so that you do know that whatever comes in the future, you do know how to tackle that. I know when we're talking in stages, or I would say in platforms like that, we always look at the problems. It's not that the world is so dark. There are so many good things out there, don't get me wrong. But if I thank you 10 times and I slap you once, I believe you will always remember that time that I slapped you. That's human, isn't it? But for us to make the difference, we should look at it from both angles, what is good and what is bad. And then find a path or an opportunity for both angles and see where that brings us, because that's what a leader does. They don't think about themselves only, they think about others, how they will influence others. How can they be the model on giving young people the voices? And that's what we do at World Assembly of Youth, through our activities, through our programs. It's about raising that awareness, providing that platform for them, and speaking up to them and hearing what they have to say. Because, trust me, no one knows everything. We all have to sit together, put our minds together, and learn from each other, then come up with solutions that will better work in that society, state, or country for that matter, or region. Because what might be good, let's say in Albania, it might not be good in Russia. Or what it could be applicable, let's say in Africa somewhere, DRC, could not be applicable in Latin America, maybe in Colombia. There are certain things that differ us, but instead of looking at the challenges and differences, we should also look at the similarities, what unites us, the beauty of that diversity. And as a leader, we should provide that platform and that society to be more youth-friendly. Because, like I say from the beginning, you are the leaders of today. And if you do not speak up, we can't hear you. But if you do, let's make that difference. Thank you.
Как минимум, Эдиола говорила, что вы лидеры уже раз пришли.
So those who are here are leaders, those who change the world and who are ready to undertake a high-profile agenda. They are really very engaged people. And now I would like to give the floor to the leader of a public association, Volunteers of Victory, Olga Amelchenkova, head of that volunteer movement. So who is a volunteer and who is the leader of volunteers?
Are volunteers leaders or are they led people? First of all, let me tell you how happy I am to be here. In response to your question, Elia, I would say that it wouldn't be right to say that every volunteer is a leader, but the volunteer movement and volunteer organizations, I'm sure, help shape leadership qualities, and they are an incubator for leaders. We are one of the largest volunteer organizations in Russia today, with more than 177,000 members in this country. Like other volunteer organizations, we help young people become leaders. And I can explain why. First of all, we have a system of developing our volunteers. As many other volunteering organizations, we have a system whereby a volunteer comes in at the entry level, but after a while, after some experience, rises a step up. This is now a team leader, a coordinator of a group of volunteers. Somewhat later, he can grow up to be a coordinator of a line of work. For instance, the headquarters of my organization is made up of people we found in different regions who went through being coordinators of individual projects, and now they coordinate movements involving thousands and thousands of volunteers across the country. Just like other volunteer organizations, we look out for such people. You put the question like this: what's the function of volunteers? You said, well, volunteers can do some very simple things. But some people, even if when they do simple things, do it in a way that is different from others. Let me give you a small example. For instance, for 3 years, we've been involved in volunteer support of perhaps the most heartfelt event in our country, the Immortal Regiment. This is what is done on Victory Day. Let me explain to our guests from other countries. If you had a relative who perished during the Second World War, on Victory Day you pick up his photograph and you go out in the streets and join a big manifestation to commemorate the heroism of those fallen heroes. Last year, 8 million people participated in that. So let me show you how it works on an example. Last year, during such a manifestation, a tearful mother came up to a policeman and said she had lost her child in the crowd. Volunteers, they were not even addressed first, but they heard about it. Imagine a square full of thousands of people, and one of the volunteers suggested what could be done. They repeated the description of the child along the chain of volunteers posted up and down the square, and they found the child within 8 minutes in a crowd of thousands. And that shows how somebody can assume the responsibility, how somebody steps forward and does something without waiting to be told to do it. So this is the kind of people that we are looking for, and we find them wherever they are. Youth organizations help develop leadership qualities, and I can give you some other examples of that. Let me take myself as an example. I started out as a volunteer in one of the regions of our country, and after a few years, I rose through the ranks to be you are interested, join us or find us on the website or join our competition. And maybe a few months from now, we will all meet together in former Stalingrad, now Volgograd. Olga recalled many examples of how something that starts small can become a large public movement. The Immortal Regiment action started in one of the regions of Russia, and after just a few years, it has developed into something that involves millions of people everywhere across the country. And this is a grand example of how something that was launched by a few people can grow into something which is really big. Now, let me give the floor to the speaker who represents Mars Incorporated, a large company that is importantly involved in research of youth leadership potential. Daria Maslovskaya is personnel director of Mars. She will tell us how they work with young people in that organization. Thank you. I hope you don't mind if I stand up when I speak, because I can see you better. And also, what I'm going to speak about is very important for me, and I feel so strongly about it that I must stand up. I want to thank the speakers before me because you shared with us some beautiful examples of leadership. And I also assume that many of the people in this room now consider themselves as leaders already. But I'm here to you will not have a job to do 5 years from now. And we work in many different spheres. We work in counterterrorism, we work in finance, whatever. And technologies will just eat us all up.
Maxim, maybe you will comment on this one, because it's about labor, and you as the Minister of Labor. Well, if I got it right, don't believe what has been said. I will explain. Who believes politicians? Actually, no one believes politicians. Well, I don't always use the knowledge that I acquired back at school. It's about self-development, self-learning, all-life learning. You ought to keep pace with new technologies, with new things happening in life. I don't think we should word it like this. No one will need what they've studied at university. Well, I think it's like this. Just another comment. Much has been said about the pharmaceutical industry. Some say that many of the drugs of the medications are imposed on you, and there are certain technologies that help them to pitch these medications at you. Certain countries try to create barriers to prevent that. And when we hear all these talks about the artificial intelligence, I don't think that we should go too deep into that subject unless we know much about it. We should be very careful about it. It's a very sensitive issue. We keep saying a digital economy, but no one can say for sure what digital economy is. As I say, we should be very careful with the wording and with the discussions on such issues. Okay, I suggest that we proceed with questions. The young guy with the T-shirt number 86. Can you hear me? Distinguished speakers, distinguished participants, I am from Khanty-Mansi region. I am a Deputy Minister of the Regional Policy for Youth. Together with the Russian Youth Association, we are designing a festival in Surgut in December. So we want to discuss with working young people the issue of mentorship, which is of great importance. Maxim, could you please tell us what the ministry is doing in this respect? You know, we have certain proposals that we could submit. It's necessary to create a platform of mentors, and we would like to discuss these proposals at this platform of mentors and of mentorship that we're going to establish. I'll try to be short. Unfortunately, I won't be able to go to Surgut because just a week ago I was in Khanty-Mansisk, in your hometown, actually, and in your home region. Right, this issue of mentorship is high on the agenda. We speak a lot about dual education, internships, but I don't think that we should change the law, the legal base. Mainly, it's about methodology, perhaps, or approaches, practices. Take educational standards. Perhaps that's about a better wording for what is to be trained at school or at university or at colleges during the education. We have educational standards, we have professional standards, and right, we need to improve them. I think that you should formulate your proposals and results of your conference and submit it to us. Thank you. Thank you for your wonderful words. It's also inspiring. I'm Yelena. I'm from St. Petersburg, and I'm from an executive body of power. My question is to you, Maxim. No, I know that there is a standard concerning work with young people. It's underway. I mean, it's being designed. Well, there is much focus on supporting and maintaining young people's leading potential. I know that many people who came here went through a certain selection process who tried to prove that they are the best. But at the same time, we have quite a lot of young people who are in the so-called risk zone. And we need to take care of it. I think that we should work closer together with you. I speak about problem children, problem young people. Something needs to be done at the government level in this respect, in terms of the legal base or improving the legal base. Let's do it on a question by question basis. Okay, I understand you want to be eternally young, and that's why you are so eager about what you speak. Well, I think it would be wrong if at the government level we develop a professional standard that would be designed at working with young people, that will be addressed at working with young people. How are professional standards developed? Who develops them? It's not that the officials do that. It's professionals or academicians do that. You know, I don't think the government will be able to tell you how you inside that, within that environment, how you can make an impact on the problem children, on these young people. But it doesn't mean at all that the government should not do anything about it. It should have a policy, or it should have a program of its own. Well, I think it's a very important issue. There are particular specialists who are engaged in this process. I mean, in the process of working with problem children. I'm not much of an expert in this, but I don't think we need a professional standard in this respect. But if someone generates it, I will look at it. Well, a question from Sector 1.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Say Minh Hong. I am a young diplomat from Cambodia, the Kingdom of Cambodia, so a country in Southeast Asia. Well, first of all, I would like to extend my sincere thanks to all guest speakers for your knowledgeable speeches. Well, the volunteer activity is playing a very important role in social and economic development in any countries, especially the developing countries like Cambodia and other countries. But the problem is that how can we encourage the volunteer activity? This is the problem. And before become a diplomat, I had experience in leading youth to do some volunteer activity, but they don't really follow us. And we try to have some incentives, compensation to what they have spent their times. They spend some money, sometimes they spend their energies, and sometimes they don't really have time with their families. And this always the problems in any volunteer activities. So my question to you is, what kind of other methods that we can use to encourage the volunteering activity in any programs or in any circumstances? Thank you so much. Yeah.
Спасибо большое за вопрос.
Thank you so much for that question. Here in Russia, over the past decades, both the country, the government, and the public are actively engaged in encouraging volunteering activity. Much has been done in this respect at different levels, starting from the legal base. Now there is an issue under discussion, and that's about taxation. Like, it's about taxation that we are now trying to implement a law. We try to reduce as many barriers as possible in volunteering activity. Personally, I believe that there are two ways that would help to attract, to engage a particular person to volunteering activity. So, first of all, face-to-face talk. When you explain to that person what they are doing and why they need it. And another thing is a wonderful event, a well-organized event. And if these things go together, this person will 90% sure become a volunteer. I think Abdu could, and Idiola and Bertrand could also answer that question. What motivation do you use in your countries?
Я отвечу очень коротко. Это социальная инженерия. Если ты готов встретить, if you're prepared to really take on the challenge and try to resolve it, then you really have to understand what the person is about, what his or her values are. But of course, you have to be involved in the community. Or maybe you cannot make people inspired. Maybe it is about you. Maybe you're not doing your best. But then again, all of us make mistakes. But you need to pick yourself up and go further.
Of a lot of people that work in the development sector, and looking also at the target audience of volunteerism at this current moment, you need to understand a little bit more your demographic. Who are you targeting? Start from there. Are you targeting young people between the age of 18 to 30? Are you targeting 30 plus? Are you targeting differently abled people that are fantastic base for volunteerism? Who's your target segment? Based on that understanding of your target segment, you can develop a lot of different strategies for engagement. Because, for example, if you're talking even about an age demographic that is from 18 to 30, like people keep talking about it all the time, that's a completely different set of people. Because currently in our world, the generation gap is 5 years. 5 years is the generation gap. So if you're talking about people between the age of 18 to 24, it's completely different than what is above. So understand your target segment, design your engagement strategy according to that, and don't take it for granted that, yeah, we just want to engage people in volunteer work in the absolute, because that's the first usually bottleneck or gap that we usually fall into when we're working with the development sector. So, and make sure to be inclusive, because any segment of society can be volunteers. It's not only people that are able or not only people that have money. Sometimes the best of volunteers that create the biggest of impact are people that are within what you so-call your stakeholder group. People that are living in poverty, people that are fighting hunger, people that are differently able, just like I said earlier. Some of them create and compose the best composition of your volunteering segment. So look at it from different angles.
If I may add to that, whatever they just say, plus volunteering, it's a value. It should come with an insight. If you want to contribute about something, you should feel it. You should go beyond yourself to do something good for whatever reason. You can't force it. No matter what intensive you give or incentives you get out of it, because the moment you are already looking at it as a way of payment to receive that kind of service, then it's no longer a volunteerism, it's a part-time job, or it's an internship to begin with. But if you look at it, or maybe it comes back to demographic and data, you need to know what those people are interested of contributing to, and what kind of activities are you providing for them. And get to know the participants, the volunteers. Get to know what they really feel like, what they want to contribute. Because if you want them to help in environment when they actually want to help in education, it's going to be a half-done job. So it comes back to values, having that, the spirit of contribution, the giving and taking, being humane. Thank you.
Очень важно, конечно же, понимать, что волонтерство
Certainly, we must understand that volunteering is not for everyone. Some people will find it quite obnoxious. Like some people like conference moderators, and other people don't like conference moderators because they take away their microphone. I want to give the floor to Daria because she needs to be in the next session after now. I simply wanted to say, if you want my contacts, you can reach me through Elia, your moderator here. I really have to be elsewhere right now, so excuse me. All right. Let's hear more questions. The lady with the red band on her arm and a very colorful hairstyle. Thank you very much. I'm Maria from Tyumen region. I'm a volunteer. I'm an attaché of the Russian delegation. My question is for Olga. You said that not all volunteers are leaders. I agree. Today we have 5,000 volunteers in our region. Many of them are in leadership positions. How did you discover which people were to be put in leadership positions? Could you decide that without actually seeing the person face to face? Could you see it from their resumes? And you said you were able to judge at a distance. You said, did you mean that festival were organized? Oh, well, I didn't know how people were selected for the festival. I can tell you how we do it in our organization. We always meet our potential leaders face to face. In fact, we have people who work through their resumes and who give them tests. And can I rephrase my question then? Maybe I misunderstood something. But would you say that you can select somebody to be a leader without meeting the person face to face or without seeing how the person works? No, definitely not. But there are methods to do that, methods to judge a person's qualities. We don't actually see all team leaders work, but there are questionnaires, there are tests, there are interviews you can conduct over Skype sometimes, and this is usually enough to determine who is capable of being a team leader. Thank you very much. That's a very relevant question. I'm sure many people would like to hear a response to that. I would actually redirect it to Artyom Mitylyov, who is in the room here. But then, Artyom, can you pick it up about the value of face-to-face contacts in selecting team leaders among the volunteers? Okay, I can do that in the wings after the session is over, not use up time.
On this question, you started with a foundation of saying that not every volunteer is a leader. I fundamentally believe that any person can be a leader if they choose to define the scope.
I second that.